Daring in the Desert, Chapter 8. As the three women disembarked from their ship, a little crowd gathered round about them. Being a port city, they knew there was certain to be someone who could speak English, and there was. Before long, a carriage had been found for them, and they were hoisted aboard. Their luggage was put on beside them, and they headed off to their new lodgings, a place called Pension Anglo-Suisse that they had arranged by letter. Pension is a British word for a hotel. No sooner were they in the door than one of them remembered that, allowing for the time difference, it was exactly the same time as a little group of their friends would be meeting to pray for them in England. Forgetting about unpacking, they knelt down on their knees and prayed too. The following day, Lilius, Blanche, and Lucy found their way to a church service held for English Christians living in Algiers or visiting the city. After the service, as the three young women set off for their lodgings, they left an interesting conversation behind them. "Well," said an elderly man, "that was a surprise. We expected just the usual people here this morning, and we found ourselves joined by three of the most enthusiastic young women I've ever met." His wife wasn't quite so sure. "They look and sound as if they're from wealthy homes. I just don't know how they'll cope with the hardships of living in a place like this." Her husband didn't agree. "It certainly won't be easy for them, but I think they know that. It's not as if they're holiday makers hoping to tell people about Jesus for a fortnight and then go right back home again. They seem absolutely set on staying and being real long-term missionaries." "We'll see," was all his wife would say. "We'll just have to wait and see." Back at her lodgings, Lilius wrote down how she felt that day. "I could cover sheets of paper if I tried to say how happy we are. My heart just goes out to and wraps around the Arab people. Already we do love them." Lilius was good at putting words on paper, but she was even better at putting paint on paper, and she was often to be found sketching new and interesting things in Algiers. "That's exactly what it looked like," Lucy laughed. "You're painting the view of the mountains that we saw from the boat as we came in from the harbor." Her friend agreed. That was exactly what she was doing. "I never want to forget it," she said. "It was like a dream coming true right before our eyes. We've looked forward to being here for so long, and we've prayed that God would bring us here safely. Now that he has, I want a picture to remind me of how thankful I feel." Lucy giggled. "And how excited." Smiling at her friend, who looked just like a teenager when she giggled, Lilius agreed that she too was very, very excited. Each day, Lilius, Blanche, and Lucy went out for several walks in the city as they tried to find their way around. It was a place of great hustle and bustle. The streets were narrow, and people pushed against one another and squeezed past each other in a way that the three young women were certainly not used to from their polite parts of London. "The men's white robes look very bright in the sun," commented Lucy, as they walked along a street that was so narrow she could stand in the middle and touch both walls. Lilius smiled. "It's a good thing they're white," she said, "for when you step into a narrow street like this, the sun doesn't reach the road at all. You can hardly see a thing until your eyes get used to the dark." "Watch out," Blanche said, pulling Lilius to the side. "Let the water carrier past." It was so dark that Lilius hadn't noticed a young man coming towards her with a full jug of water balanced on his shoulder. Blanche smiled at the water carrier, who looked at the three strangers and broke into such a grin that they just wanted to hug him. That would have toppled his water jar over, of course, and probably also given him the fright of his life. "How I wish I could have spoken to the water carrier," said Lucy when they reached their lodgings later on. "But we don't know a single word of Arabic between us." "Not yet," Blanche agreed, "but we'll learn." "Yes, we will," Lilius said. "But the first thing we need to do is to find a house for ourselves. We can only stay at the pension for a short time." At the pension, the young women met Mrs. Kemp and her 3 daughters, who were about the same age as them. "We're living in a villa near here," Mrs. Kemp told them. "We come to the pension to receive our meals." Although hearing the Arabic language all around them was a real thrill to the 3 newcomers to Algiers, it was a relief to have 4 English speakers there too. "Would you like to come back to the villa with us?" asked Alice Kemp after they'd had their meal. "We have a little Bible study every week, and it'd be lovely if you could come there and join us." The Kemp mother and daughters were Lilia's, Blanche, and Lucy's first friends in Algiers, and they were Christians. God is so good.